I would like to introduce to you our speaker, Chris Dudek, the founder of Dudek Tennis, the co-director of tennis, and head pro at Westlake Athletic Club.
Wow. That's awesome. Oh, what's up, guys? All right, let's go. Let's get fired up here, huh? I'm just so thankful you guys all made it out tonight. I'm really excited to share with you guys a few concepts that I'm calling the skill of thought. The reason why I'm excited is because I believe if we acquire these skills, you'll transform into a player that you didn't know you could do. But to obtain these skills, we're going to have to go through some mental training rather than physical training. That's where the skill of thought comes in. I've broken the skill of thought down into 4 topics. First, we're going to talk about the ego. What is the ego? What's its purpose? Why is it there? Why is it responsible for us playing such bad tennis? But how can we work with the ego to actually play even better tennis? There's a way, I promise. Next, we'll be talking about match play emotions. So yes, we know that when we're playing, there's going to be some emotions out there. But why do the emotions get so crazy? Why does 1 point feel bigger than 1 point? That's because when we're playing, our mind tends to drift to the past and to the future. So what I mean by the past is we rely on our past experiences to then set up expectations of what should be going on right then. That's a lot of pressure. Out of that, we start projecting into what's going to happen, what negative results might happen if I keep playing poorly. So you add those 2 things together, and you've got quite the heavy situation. Knowing yourself can be calming. Hopefully I can know myself right now. Knowing yourself and basically choosing a style of play. So when I'm saying choosing a style of play, you know that when you choose one, there's going to be strengths and weaknesses. When you know your weaknesses and then you make those errors in those weaknesses, then you give yourself a little bit of a break. And then you also try to figure out how to use your strengths to better win the match. So when we're looking at these seasons, and we'll know when we're looking at our entire game, we'll see that we're going through different seasons and we'll be in different spots. And so what I mean is, a lot of times you're playing well and you're thinking to yourself, wow, I'm really progressing right now. Everything's going really great. I'm becoming a better player. But what about the times when you're playing poorly, when you're lost out there? How can we see that as progress? There's a way, because they all lead one into each other. We want those failure times and those suffering times to go away, but we don't really. It's actually what we need to get to the ultimate joy. So I've been teaching for over 16 years now, and my original teachings started here, and as I would attack each issue and solve each issue, I found that there was a deeper issue attached to it. So in my original teachings, I would see someone, let's say, missing a forehand, and I would go, wow, that follow-through is not good. So then I would correct their follow-through, and I would be like, oh, a little bit more like this. And that kind of worked, but then I found that the reason why they couldn't do the follow-through every single time is because of their racket preparation. So I started developing, I really think a racket preparation should be like this. Once they started doing that every time, then they were able to follow through better. And that was all good when I'm just feeding them balls. But then once they get playing, I'm noticing they can't actually do the right swing because of their body control. The body control issue has to do with when people are playing, you know, they might be jumping, they'll lean when they shouldn't, they're falling over on their shots, or maybe they're just using the wrong stance for the wrong time. So I started teaching that, and that helped a lot. When people had good body control, balance, using their hips correctly, good posture, now the swing could stay the same path every time. Because as you can see, if my swing is like this, and then I leaned over, the swing would go like this, right? So we needed to attack that. And that's still a crux in my teaching. I still believe in it wholeheartedly, and that's where a lot of my lessons go to. That being said, it's all good if you have body control, but then what if you don't bring any athleticism to the table? Now that's not saying, oh, you have to be some supreme athlete. What I'm talking about is just the general rhythm of the way you move and you strike the ball. The reason why people struggle with this athleticism part is because of the frontal lobe part of our brain. The frontal lobe is the part that judges everything, that keeps us from making bad decisions. So we need it. It says, don't do this, and this will work out, and it's kind of figuring out what's going to happen in the future. That does not help us in a tennis match. When that is turned on, all your free thinking, all your creativity, your athleticism, being able to move freely, that goes away. When that is turned on, the other is off, right? So how did I get people to get past that? One of the main things that I felt was to tell people that it is okay to try to win, but you have to be okay with losing. Before, I would be so hung up on, the losing that I would be so rippled with fear. Then I tried to not care if I win or lose. Well, that felt inauthentic, and that didn't work. What works is trying to win, but being okay with losing. That's how you get through the athleticism part. So great. Now I've got them moving with rhythm. They're setting up for their shots correctly. Everything's balanced, and we're doing good for this moment, but then the next moment it's not. Or this day and the next day it's not. And why? Why? Because the energy that they're bringing to the court, right? And so if someone brings a lot of energy, positivity, or they're pumped up and they're fired up and they're moving around great, then cool, then we can be athletic. We can go down this path. But when people were bringing no energy to the court, none of that even mattered. So I would say, hey guys, fire up, get excited, have some energy, right? That seems easy. Be positive. Don't think of those negative thoughts. Be positive. That's one that I went with for a while there. Be positive. And I am about positive thinking, sure. You can look at situations and try to take the positives and not dwell on the negatives and things like that. But overall, this whole idea of be positive and block the negative, that never worked for me. It never made sense. How can, I see one of my students out there 5-2 in the second set, ready to close it out, and they blow the second set, and I see him in between going into the third and be like, hey dude, be positive. Like, you just blew a lead. Like, how, that doesn't work, right? I'll be diving into that later and how we're going to get through that, but to me, that style does not work. All of these steps have now led me to our thought process. Our thought process being how we handle our emotions. So I started teaching the other way around. The reason why I'm doing that is because, yes, every step is important. I'm not saying they're not, but none of that stuff matters if you don't start here. What's going on in your brain? What's going on in your heart? You have to start there and then build your way up, right? Now, of course, if I'm teaching maybe a beginner, I will give them some structural things first. I mean, you have to have some base, but pretty much for everybody in this room that I see, you guys have been playing tennis for a while, so you have that basic stuff. Could it improve? Sure, but we need to start there. There being a combination of our self and ego. So we're diving into our first subject here, and the self and ego. Now this is one package, okay? We are the package, right? So we are the self and ego. The self is a person's essential being that distinguishes them from others. So it's who you are, okay? It's your unconscious thought, your true being. The ego is a person's self-esteem or self-importance. So it's basically how you think about yourself, okay? So your conscious thought, right? Your awareness of your identity. The self and the ego are not the same, okay? Yes, they are together. They're working hand in hand, but they are not the same. And that separation and being able to see yourself and see the ego over here as a separate entity, or even personifying it and talking to it and seeing it as that, can be really healthy. The ego does get a bad rap. The ego is neither negative or positive. It is just how we're taking in information, how we're seeing things, and how we feel about ourselves. So it isn't all negative. And in fact, ego is what gives us the drive to get out there and practice to improve, right? It also has a lot to do with who we are as people, our personalities. It is part of us. It was given to us for a reason. We need the ego, but the ego is bad as well. Author Elizabeth Gilbert says, that the problem with the ego is the ego always wants. It always wants love. It always wants admiration. It keeps wanting, 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 right? It does not take negativity well at all. It is very sensitive. That is one main problem. Jeff Greenwald from Fearless Tennis, who I listened to his CDs years and years ago and got me kind of started on this ego thought. His big thing was, or the thing that hit me was that we will do whatever we have to do to defend our ego. So when we find our ego to be threatened, that's when we go into freak out mode. That's when we go into dinosaur arm mode, right? We start playing like that. So how do we handle this ego? We have option A. This is where a lot of people fall into. I don't typically fall into this in tennis, but I fall into this in many other areas of my life, right? Where the ego is consuming the self. Basically, when you're in this place, any emotion that comes at you, anything that you're feeling, you're just reacting. You're just going off of it. You're not actually able to think about what that means or how to translate that. You're just bouncing around on whatever's going on. Maybe you're playing poorly, so you go into a tailspin. Maybe you play great and you get happy. You're not able to actually figure out what's going on. Everything gets so cloudy when you're just dealing with the emotions. Time and time again, I'll be teaching and I'll see a client and I'll say, why were you doing this or what were you doing here? And they'll go, oh, I wasn't even thinking. Well, why weren't you thinking? If I put you in any other sport or any other game, you would be thinking about what the best strategy might be to win right now. But they're just so clouded with this ego that they can't even make any decisions out there. Besides the fact that if you're stuck in this ego place, there's no way and it's impossible to have any kind of energy or athleticism, which we have found is really important to be able to play good tennis. You know when you're in this spot when you play a match and you win and all you feel is relief. And when you lose a match, you feel like quitting the game. That's when you know you're in this spot A. So that one sucked, right? Okay, so we're done with that one. So we'll go on to option B. Okay, this is where the next level goes, right? This is where we talk about my favorite saying, just be positive, right? Okay, the ego is bringing some negativity. I'm just going to block it, right? Okay, what about these negative thoughts that are going on? So are we just supposed to not have these negative thoughts? What about thoughts of fear, right? We need those. That's what keeps us alive. It helps us make decisions that aren't bad, that might hurt us, right? Doubt, okay? When we need that, that's what pushes us to get better, right? We need anxiety, so that way we know we're alive, we're feeling something. If you weren't feeling that anxiety, if you weren't feeling any nerves, it would be boring. You would not want to play anymore, right? So all these negative emotions that are coming in, we actually need them. What happens here, though, is when you try to block those emotions from coming in, they just get stronger. They get more powerful. First of all, you're taking a lot of brain power and a lot of energy to just try to deny those feelings. So again, we're not able to focus on how to win. We're just worried about blocking it. Another part of it that I described earlier is that you're going to feel inauthentic, right? So you're out there trying to act positive when you don't feel positive. A lot of times people in this one will say also, don't let your opponents see you like X. Okay, well, I got a lot going on here. I'm not really too worried about what my opponent's thinking. I just rather beat them. I don't really care if they see me, hurting, or if they see me celebrating, or see me even keeled. That doesn't really bother me. I just want to play well. So we know that blocking the ego isn't going to work. So let's work with this guy. Let's figure it out. So when we have these negative emotions, like I said, we do need them, right? So we accept them for what they are. So we go, yes, I'm nervous. Yes, I'm anxious. That makes sense. I am entering into a competition. When you guys enter into a competition, you're playing against someone, you are putting your ego on the line. You're putting your self-esteem, how you feel about yourself, on the line, right? You're playing against someone, and someone's going to be the lesser, okay? So that can hurt, right? So I'm saying that because when you guys sign up to play in a tournament or you go to play a match, stop expecting for this not to happen, right? It's going to happen. And again, like I said, a lot of it's necessary. So we let these come in and we go, this makes sense. This is what's going on. As soon as you acknowledge it and you let it come in, you don't go to step A, and you're not even at step A because you're acknowledging. Step A is you're just cloudy. You don't even know what's going on. You're accepting, okay? So it loses its power. Will you still feel fear and doubt and anxiety? Yes, you will, right? But it will be far less powerful. And in fact, what you do is you take it in, you go, okay, I'm feeling this way. Okay, I feel it. Now what? Now you're able to go on and actually focus on what you want to do. It is a very freeing thing to see that. Next, we'll go into the match play emotions. So as I described before, why are the emotions so heightened, right? So now we know why the emotions are coming in. We know how to deal with them. But why are they so intense when we're playing tennis? Or even more so, why are they so intense when you're playing 1 point? I was recently looking at some stats of one of my clients, and he won a match 7-6, 6-4. He lost 83 points. 83 points! And that's not even a three-setter. Another one of my clients won 6-1, 6-4, and lost 56 points. That's a lot of points to give up. And we're worried about 1 point? You have 50 to 80 to give up, right? So why are we so freaked out about losing this 1 point? As I described before, because our mind is going from the past and future. Our mind is all over the place. The past is telling us what should be. We have expectations. Okay, I practiced this shot for a month. How did I miss that shot? Or I better not miss that shot. That doesn't make sense that I'm going to miss that shot. Then we start projecting on what will happen. If I keep doing this, what negative things are going to happen, right? So that's a lot of weight to put on that. I'm going to show you guys some examples of how this happens. You guys see some of those and go, oh yeah, I may have felt one or two or all of them. We'll go into the start in the past. My warm-up was, I put that because it could be your warm-up was trash. So now I'm going to play like trash. Or, why am I playing this way? My warm-up was good. What does that have anything to do with the point you're playing right now and trying to figure out how to hit the ball? This is usually my favorite shot. So maybe you get a sitter in the middle of the court with a forehand, and you go up to hit it, and you miss it. And you're like, I never missed this shot. What is wrong with me? How do I miss such an easy shot? Do you know how many things go into hitting one ball? All the different muscles that are working, all the way the ball bounced, how they hit it, your emotions in the moment. There are so many factors, millions and millions of factors. And then you think that every single time they're all going to line up perfectly? That is a ridiculous thought. Do not go down that path. You could miss any shot at any time, and you could make any shot at any time. I played so well yesterday. I love how it was like, everyone's like, yeah, okay, got that one. And that could be yesterday, that could be early in the day if you had 2 matches. That can be, I played so well in the first set, why am I so bad in this second set, right? Basically, what happens is, let's say you go from a first set to a second set, or you played yesterday and you're playing now. What has happened then has nothing to do with what's going on right now. Maybe there's some rhythms and stuff like that, but let's go into the second set after a first set. Your emotions have changed. I don't care if you won, lost, if it was close, whatever, different thought processes have happened. Your opponent's emotions have changed. Maybe they actually changed their strategy how to hit the ball. Maybe you change yours. There are, again, so many elements. So the key to this is you have to constantly reset. If you go into that second set, or you go into any game, or any time you start feeling that, you reset. You just take it for what it is. They're going to hit a ball, and I'm going to try to figure out how to hit it this way. What you did in the previous set has nothing to do with what's going on right now. So why are you attaching it to that? He or she is ranked or rated below me. That's a tough one, right? What is someone's ranking or rating? What they have done in the past, right? Who's to say they haven't improved tremendously since their past results or where their ranking is? Who's to say that the way you hit the ball, they really like it, it's in their hitting zone? Or maybe you don't like the way they hit the ball. Or maybe they're just on fire that day, right? Again, not helpful, right? Just be ready to play an opponent, okay? You might want to study up on some styles or whatever, but what they're ranked has nothing to do with what's going on right then. Okay, this one's my favorite one. I hear this one all the time after a loss. I've trained so hard and I still suck. Yeah, I mean, what can I say? I mean, it's hard when you put in a lot of effort for something. You're constantly working, you're constantly trying to get better, and then you go out there and you don't get the result you want. That's hard. That's going to be hard in anything in life. That's going to be hard on the tennis court, right? One thing I like to start with there, though, is usually our perspective is a little bit narrow. And what I mean is, you may have put in X amount of time and you're this level. I can guarantee you there are many, many thousands, millions of players that have put in more time than you and are worse than you. I can also tell you there are a lot of people, tons and tons of people, that have put in less work than you and are better than you, right? So what are you going to do with that information, right? What does that have to do with you trying to hit a ball right now, okay? We're trying to play a match and try to play a point. Just because that person started tennis 6 months ago and they're better than you, that hits you in the face. But that person over there has been playing for 20 years and you're better than them, but you just kind of discard that one. We'll just take this one. Why is that person better than you? Again, not helping. Okay, so all that, right? Not helping and bringing a lot of weight to one point. Wow, I'm exhausted. That's some heavy lifting. And we get to go into the future. All right, let's throw more on this guy. So the future about projecting. I can't lose this match because of, I don't know why, right? There are a million reasons why you can't lose a match. And they're probably correct, right? Sometimes maybe not, but sometimes, yeah, no, it's not fun to lose a match. Maybe it's going to hurt you in some way. You've been training, like it's not fun. Okay, how is thinking about that right now going to help you win this point? My ranking or rating will go up. Again, very true, right? And this one's a very serious one. You know, we've got a lot of juniors in the room who might be trying to get college scholarships and their ranking matters, right? Or, you know, there's a lot of maybe 3 5s and 4-0s and they are just tired of playing with the same group and they want to play with a new group and it's going to bring them more happiness to go and play with new groups. Like, it's all important. And it's true. That first one is true and the second one is true. It's not about them not being true. It's just about how is that actually helping you right now play better tennis. Okay? We're going to play a third set. Okay? So this one, you know, maybe because of the scoring system or the finalization of it, but especially if you're up the first set and then you might be losing the second, now you're thinking, oh man, here we go. We're going to a third, right? I mean, if we're being really crazy, we'll actually go, wow, that's actually more tennis. And that also means your opponent's actually probably on par with you. That's what we all want, right? We don't want to play people that are so much better than us and so much worse than us. We want these tight matches, but yet we keep trying to avoid them. Do you guys remember when Michael Jordan left the game of basketball right in his prime for 2 years to go play baseball after he won 3 championships? Why would the best ever, doing the thing that he's best at, getting the most accolades, quit to go play something he's worse at? Because it's boring to just be there at the top. If I say, hey, go play this person and you know you're going to beat them 6-0, 6-0, you'd be like, no, thank you. No, Chris, give me the person that's just above me so I can really challenge myself. And not below me so I don't have to feel bad about myself if I lose. But give me that person that's a really nice match, right? But yet, our minds keep thinking like that we don't want this. That doesn't make any sense. What will they think of me? So this, what will they think of me, goes back to the self and ego discussion, right? And other people's opinions of us, it can sting. Yeah, it does. But not if we're really diving into our true self. Pastor, author, Rob Bell, one of my favorites, he says to talk to fear. So again, that's kind of taking the ego and personifying it and talking to it. And talk to the fear. The way that I talk to the fear is when I'm playing a match, I go and just play out the worst case scenario. So anytime I start getting tight, I start thinking like, okay, let's say I play terrible the rest of this match and I lose to this guy. And then he thinks he's better than me. Damn, you know, I'm a competitor, right? Like, that sucks, okay? But I have to do an evaluation of what tennis means to me, you know? I have to step back and do big picture thinking. I have to go, okay, when I evaluate other people, do I evaluate them first on their tennis skills? Or do I evaluate them on who they are as people and how they treat others and, you know, other things, right? And how am I going to value myself, right? So we're going back into that self. What do I think of myself? That's more important, right? So again, I'm not saying it doesn't sting when this person thinks they're better than me, but not that bad. Second, then I'll think of all the people that were watching me or are going to ask me about the match, right? So I'm going to get off the court and the people watching, or maybe I even let down a team, you know, or maybe I lose to someone who I never lose to, and you know, they say to me, Chris, like, what happened? You lost to that guy? And I'm like, yeah, I sucked today. I did. It wasn't good, you know? And they're going to go, okay, because every single person has sucked at some point, so they're going to understand, right? I mean, maybe their perception of you goes down a little bit. You can't control that, right? At the same time, too, just a little bit about perception. I've been sitting there watching one of my clients play terribly, and the person next to me is commenting about how athletic they are, how nice their strokes are, what a good player they are. Oh, they'll probably pull it together. This match means nothing. And they're just saying all these positive things about this client of mine because they are good. On the opposite end, I've been sitting there watching one of my clients who I think is doing great. I'm like, oh, man, they're really coming through with a lot of the stuff they've been practicing, you know? And the person next to me like, well, if they just did this strategy, then they'd be better, you know? The point is that a lot of their perceptions of you guys is already kind of preconceived ideas of how they feel about things or you in the past. So it's, again, how is trying to even wrap our brains about how we can control other people's thoughts on us even going to help us in a match? Lastly, this one's a little bit more on the positive end. Maybe you're in the second set and you're crushing someone and you're thinking, okay, who am I playing next round? Or my favorite is I like to think about what I'm going to go get for lunch and who with or whatever. As we know, momentum can change on a dime, right? So abort those thoughts immediately. So that was a lot there. And I probably could put up a whole nother screen of these. It's a lot of weight. So how does me talking about this actually help? So first, again, like I talked about the ego, just acknowledging what's going on. Being able to see it for what it is. So when you're playing the match, going like, oh, okay, I'm having this thought. Oh, why am I having this thought? Oh, because of the past or because of something I'm projecting. So just seeing it for what it is will then help you not have to do it. And so once we go, okay, I'm worried about this shot right now because I feel like I should be making the shot. By the way, the word should. Please don't ever use the word should ever, 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 ever. There's no shoulds ever. We wouldn't play sports if there were shoulds. We wouldn't watch sports if there were shoulds. Nobody should beat somebody else. Nothing should ever happen. So first, we acknowledge and we see what's going on. Then second, we try to refocus our brain into the present, right? What's going on right now? How can we do that? Well, we can think about how we're going to hit this next shot. We can think about the point we're going to play. We can think about bringing more energy. We can think about our footwork. We can think about our stances. You can think about whatever works for you, okay? I'm not here to tell you what works for your brain. You are all individuals. You have to figure that out. How do you do that? You just start trying. You just start trying. You go out there and you start thinking this out. Okay, I'm going to do X. And then you try it. If it doesn't work, then you move on to Y, right? And you keep doing that. As you start figuring it out, that goes into knowing who you are. When I'm talking about knowing who you are, I'm talking about figuring out a style of play that you want to play. Okay? Once you do this and you start prioritizing shots that you want to do, you're going to have some weaknesses. One of my clients who's a really good player, we've developed a really all-around game. And he does quite well. And he has really nice ground strokes, but sometimes he might play in a tournament with a kid who might have slightly better ground strokes. And I don't want him to think that there's anything wrong with him because he doesn't have as good a ground strokes as that kid. That kid has just chosen to practice ground strokes all the time. So they are better at ground strokes, right? My client has practiced ground strokes, but also has better volleys, approach shots, slices, defensive shots, offensive shots, the whole game. So if he gets hung up on the fact that, oh, my ground strokes aren't as good as him, there's something wrong with me. No, you have all this other stuff. So now you know what your style is, so you don't highlight those weaknesses. You figure out how to get the point where you can get into situations where you can highlight your strengths. So how do we figure out who we are? How do we figure out what style of play we should do? Well, we'll start off with, what am I good at? So if you're good at volleys, you're good at ground strokes, you're good at defense, you're good at offense, whatever you're good at, that's a good starting point. I wouldn't put too much weight into it, but it gets you somewhere. Second, the type of person I am. One thing when I'm talking about the type of person you are, you can draw upon other sports you play or other things you do in life, work, relationships, whatever. So the way that I actually was able to figure out what kind of tennis made me play my best tennis was relying on how I played other sports. I was asking myself, okay, if I go golf, I play football, I play basketball, I play this style, but when I'm playing tennis, I'm playing this style. That doesn't go with who I am. That doesn't work. So I started adapting the style that I do everything else in there, because that's where my comfort zone is, acting that way. You know what the ramifications of being the way that you are in other areas of life, so then you will be able to handle that when it comes onto the tennis court. Those two are good starting points. We go to what style inspires me. So none of that actually matters if you really have a style of play that you really like, or you're watching a player and you're like, I really want to play that way. That being said, if you're really good at ground strokes, but you see the volley game is something you really want to do, and you really like going to the net, then you should do that. Because then you'll be more inspired to practice harder. You'll be more inspired to go out to the court, right? At worst, you do that for a while, and then what happens? You realize it doesn't work, and then you switch to a different style. That's okay. You're not married to it forever, but it's just important while you're in it that you're doing that. You are how you play. So now you've made the decision of how you're going to play. You need to stick with it, right? So if I want to play like style A, but every time I get into a big match situation and I start turning into style B on big points, then guess what? I'm going to get better at style B. I see this filter down even worse when I'm teaching clinics or lessons. I see people going into style B in a clinic. How do you think you're going to play style A if you can't even play style B in a clinic? The point is, you're going to be good at whatever you do a lot. So if you continue to do style A, if you go up and you hit the ball the way that you think it should be hit in every moment that you're playing, then you will become better at that. Every time you make the decision to go to a different style, you get better at that style, which means you lessen the style that you're trying to get better at. You must stick to the plan. That obviously can be hard to do, and very emotional, but is easy as a decision. I remember the first time that I really made that decision when I was playing a match. It was about 10 years ago, and it was somewhere late in the first set. And I started off the set playing pretty well, but towards the end of the first set, I started really tightening up. And I remember the score was 15-all. And I sat there, and I'm like, I refuse to play this way anymore. I would rather miss this shot than play that kind of tennis anymore. I am going to play Chris Dudek tennis, whatever that means, win or lose. It's not worth it to me. And I remember for that next shot, stepping and hitting that ball. I also just went ahead and assumed that I was going to lose 15-30. I would rather lose that point than hit a ball style B anymore. It was not going to happen. So I stepped in and hit the ball. I actually can't tell you, honestly, whether I made the shot or whether I won the point or won that match. But I can tell you how good it felt to overpower that fear, to make the choice that made me the better player. I have never gone back. I will never play a substandard game of myself. Do I ever get tight? Sure, for a point or two or for a minute or two, but I have the tools to figure out how not to do that anymore. Besides the fact, I just refuse. It's just not going to happen. So yes, the emotions are there, but it's a decision. You decide what's more important to you. You have to prioritize. I know for me, when I would go to that style B play, how much that fear and how much playing bad tennis and then losing would just suck the enjoyment of tennis right out of me, and I did not want to feel that ever again. Which takes us to our satisfaction scale. So, when I would play style B, or when you guys play style B, your scale is 0 to 6. When you win a match playing style B, you are happy. You won. You're probably giving yourself a 6. You're moderately happy. Again, we're in that relief part. When you lose playing style A, you are at a 4 probably, maybe even a 3 sometimes. So I'm not saying that losing at style A feels better than winning at style B. That's not what I'm saying, okay? The winning is going to feel better than losing. It's just how it is, okay? But if I lose playing style B, it's a 0. It's crippling. It's terrible. If I win playing style A, it's euphoric. It's amazing. What scale do I want to play on when I go play a match? I'd rather risk a 4 to get a 10 than risk a 0 to get a 6. It makes sense looking at it, right? It's that simple of a decision. A real quick story, I played a lot of flag football in my day, and basically my strength is to throw the ball deep. I was the quarterback for the team. And every season we'd be scoring tons of points, and inevitably sometime in the season I'd have a bad game, I'd throw some picks, we lose the game. And most of the other teams and the team there would play this more dink and dunk type of offense. And so the team would be like, hey Chris, maybe we should do more like conservative throws, you know? Maybe we should do like more short passes. And I'll be like, oh, okay, sure, you know, whatever, I'm a team player, you know? So I'd play that way the rest of the season. We would not score as many points, maybe win and lose some games. We'd limp our way into the playoffs, and we'd lose like first or second round. I wouldn't be having a good time, and we wouldn't be playing that great, but I would do that to appease the team. Years and years and seasons of this going on, same situation happens again. The team comes to me, and I say, hey, guess what, team? If you need a different quarterback, I understand. I am not that person. That's not my strength. I don't like playing that way. It's not going to happen. I throw the ball deep, and I throw it hard, and I'm aggressive. I am going to make errors, but that is my personality. That's who I am. That's what I enjoy, and that's what I think is going to be the best for this team. If you guys want to go with a different quarterback, I totally understand that. That's cool. I'm just not going to be that person. We happened to go on and win the championship that year, you know, but just, you know, I'm just saying, you know. But obviously, the winning the championship has little to do with what my happiness was. My happiness was going like, wow, I understand who I am, and I'm going to do this no matter what. And it's just so freeing to be that way. The last little part I want to talk about is how you act on the court. So people will give a lot of advice about how you should act on the court, right? People would always tell me, hey, Chris, be more even-keeled. You're too emotional on the court, blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, okay. And I'd like miss a shot, and I'd be like, I'm okay. And I hit some crazy winner, I'd be like, all right, good job, Chris, you know? I mean, cool. And I think for a lot of people, that works really good. Again, knowing yourself, right? We're in the know yourself type, right? So that works really good. If being calm works for you, then be calm. If getting upset makes you frustrated and you lose more points, then don't do that. Or maybe you need to get upset for a second to release and then go into a calm state. I get that too. Not for me, okay? I get upset. I get fired up. You know, I'll be like, damn it, I suck, you know? And everybody's like, Chris, don't beat yourself up. I'm like, no, that's just firing me up. You don't know me. You don't know what's best for me. I know what's best for me. I've been competing for years now, right? So I don't like to tell any of my students, oh, act this way. Act the way that works best for you. Now, if they act a certain way and then they proceed to play worse the points after that, well, then obviously that style is not working, so you need to regroup. But there's so many different personalities. There's so many different ways to do things. Again, what are we going back to? You have to figure it out on your own. Just try things. Moving through seasons. So what I'm getting at here is basically how we're going to be able to map our progress as we're trying to grow. Again, it's going to be easy when we're doing well to see that we're progressing, but how is it going to work when we're not doing well? These here are the 4 seasons that we go through as we're evolving our game. So basically, you are this level of player, and you have the thought that, you know what, I really want to try to get to this next level. So you desire change, right? Desiring change is a little bit scary because you're like, oh, I'm going to step out here. But for the most part, there's a lot of hope and excitement there. Oh, I can't wait till I learn this new stroke, and then I'm going to start beating fools, you know? So it's a very exciting time. But Guess what happens when you actually dive into changing your game? You go into a season of suffering. Okay? I don't know how long that suffering is going to last. It could last a couple weeks, it could last a couple months, it could last a whole year, it just depends. You know, if you're trying to change your whole game, that could take a while. If you're just trying to change one shot, maybe it takes a minute. Also, maybe you're really good at making this change. You know, I've changed things in students and within that lesson they're getting it, right? And I've changed other things in students and it takes 6 months, it takes forever. You don't know how long it's going to go. But guess what? You don't get to the season of joy without going through that. Here's our season of joy. So now we've been suffering for a while, but a couple of the shots we've been practicing is working. We start maybe beating some people we didn't. We have some successes. There is no greater feeling than that moment right there. You're like, yes, I am actually moving forward. I am making progress. That lasts for a while, and then you start going into living the change. So that becomes your new reality. That's the level of player that you are now. Okay? We tend to forget where we were 6 to 9 months ago and forget the progress we made, and we're just living in this reality in which, of course, we're here. So what's going to happen? Desire some more change, right? This cycle is going to be constantly going on for the rest of your life. There isn't a magical level that you can get to play at that will then make you happy all the time. It doesn't exist. I promise you. If I could just beat that person. No, it doesn't happen. So what happens is you jump on here, you realize the cycle keeps going, and you try to enjoy each moment for what it is. As I talked about, we don't get to have the season of joy without the season of suffering. If you're going to make some changes, the suffering is going to happen. If I ask you guys to tell me some stories about your best tennis successes or best life successes or anything, what has shaped you as a person, what are you going to tell me? Are you going to tell me about the time when you went out and you played great and everything went well? Or everything went so well in your life and then, you know, you're having some drinks by the pool and that really shaped my life? No. I'm like, give me 3 or 4. Each story you give me is going to be about some sort of struggle or some sort of suffering that you went through to get to that joy, right? It's overcoming the suffering that actually makes us feel happy. So you cannot deny the suffering. You cannot sit there and hope that it never happens. Hoping for suffering not to happen doesn't make sense. Next time you have suffering, you need to take on that challenge as an opportunity to get through that. Author Alexander Shaya, I love the way he puts this. He says, the struggle is an invitation. So when you are in that moment and you are struggling with whatever you're going, that is an invitation to then get to joy. It just helps me so much every time, all areas of life, tennis. If I'm struggling in something, I go, okay, this isn't good, but yes, here we go. That means the next season is around the corner. So just knowing that each season has its purpose. All right, guys, you now have the skill of thought. Okay, well, maybe not yet, but being here, step in the right direction, right? Okay, we're start going on these things. I've been thinking about these things for years upon years upon years, you know, adding different things. I can't tell you how much it's helped me. The way we're going to keep going this is we're going to remember how to work with our ego, right? So take that ego, we're going to personify it, we're going to take it for what it is. We're not going to try to block it. We're not going to let it cloud us. When we're feeling the negative emotions, we're going to understand that they're there for a reason. We're going to work with them, and then they're going to come in, and we're going to go, okay, I'm feeling them. Great. Now let me move on. Let me figure out what I'm going to do. We're going to try to stop time traveling, realizing that thinking about the past and thinking about the future is not helping you. Stop bringing on those expectations. Get out of that word should, please. Remember, how are we going to do that? Is we're going to find out who we are and what works for us. When we figure out who we are, we're going to be really in tune to our strengths and our weaknesses. That really helps us as far as our training, as far as playing matches, as far as knowing that you cannot be good at every aspect of the game. It is impossible. You have to make choices. Lastly, when I was talking about the whole experience there, you either enjoy the journey and all the cycles and all the seasons that we talked about, or you don't. Let me say that again. You either enjoy it or you don't. You don't play well and then enjoy. You don't have all these things happen and you enjoy, and you're waiting for that moment. That's why, especially my top clients, seem more miserable than being happy. 80% of the time, they're always upset. I often ask them, why are you playing tennis? Like, if it's so upsetting all the time, what's the point? The point is they don't see the seasons. They don't see where they're at. Oh, I'm through this struggling, or I'm in this joy, or this is where I'm at, or I'm desiring this change. And going through it and just enjoying the whole process of everything that's going on. All right, guys, this is your game. This is your opportunity. There are so many complexities that go on in tennis. That is what makes it fun. I promise you, if you take on the challenges that are in front of you with an excitement and enthusiasm to try to work through it, this will not let you down. Tennis will become an unending source of enjoyment. All right, so get out there, apply the skill of thought, and elevate your game. Yeah. Thanks, guys.